welcome CW140-141 to our first face-to-face class meeting, during which we will be talking about the OIE model of the writing workshop, which you are familiar with. Now, most of you are familiar with it because we took it up in our CW100 class. And we also practiced it during our workshop sessions, which were actually few, kasi that was the pandemic time, that was the lockdown. Iniisip ko din, at the time I was also learning how to use the OIE model. And at this point, of course, meron na din akong bagong I guess insights and understanding of how to use the OIE model in the writing classroom, especially because ginamit ko na din siya sa higher na CW course. And like well, I probably didn't tell you at the time, kasi yung time na yun ay first time ko rin siya itry, and we were all just along with you. I was learning how to use it. And but I have now since the pandemic, so I've used it in CW100 3 times, and I've used it in CW140 3 times as well. So, or this is the third time. I think this is the third time that I'm using it for CW140-141. And it's really more useful for the higher creative writing course, because the students come to the course with greater appreciation for the writing workshop based on how you experience it in your other classes. So it's the insights are more useful, I think, in terms of what the OIE model wants to achieve, which is what Mary Ann Cain calls the third space, the thirding of the writing workshop session. All right, so that's what we want to see, how your own appreciation of the writing workshop has evolved through the past 2 years of being in the BA English program. Of course, in the survey that I sent you, or the slum book that I sent you, 99% of you said that you felt that the writing workshop is a great learning experience, and I'm so glad to read that, that you still feel, because you have changed actually, so yung unang results ng survey nyo nung first year pa kayo iba, and now it's 99% positive learning experience. And what we want to do is process that, how what you have seen in your other courses, and how we might be able to kind of maybe consolidate what you have seen in your other classes, and kind of reconcile it with what we want to do in our CW140 class. All right, so your question is, well, of course, that the questions, what surprised you, and what intrigued you, and what disturbed you, they bring to the fore your assumptions about writing, and about the writing workshop, and the potential of where you might be able to derive new insight about that particular topic. That's why those are the guide questions. So was there anything, so we'll ask, of course, those of you who were under the CW100 class, were your other courses in CW different in terms of the way the writing workshop was managed? Yes, how?
For example, for formalism workshop, the model was one person, one student. Yeah, and for third step, for the poetry workshop, it was anonymous input.
Sige, isa-isa na lang muna. So there's one class in which the model was the traditional American writing workshop. That's the American writing workshop. What works and what doesn't work, and therefore, what do you do with what doesn't work? Okay, you give suggestions on how to fix it. Okay, so which is exactly what we don't like to do in the OIE model. So how did you react to that? The first time you came to that class in which the teacher said, of course, it's not the teacher's fault. That is really the American model. That is the traditional, that's the model in the Silliman Writers Workshop. Yes. I mean, I love Ian, but that's really the new critical framework.
Formalism.
Well, that's a good thing to hear. No, in my classroom, we hate formalism. But syempre, you're in a creative writing program, so you can't hate it entirely. Not to the bone, because you will have teachers who will want to promote the formalist method. Why? Because it's easier. It's really the easy way to teach creative writing. When we think about can creative writing be taught, that's the way it has been taught for years. That's the way I learned creative writing, through the very traditional path that I took, no, as a creative writer. I guess it works to a certain extent, and that's why it has endured through all these years. 1950s pa, it's called new criticism, but it's from the 1950s. Yung mga pinag-aralan nila Edith and Edelberto Tiempo sa Iowa Writers Workshop sa Amerika. Yeah, yun yung hanggang ngayon tinuturo, no, sa Silliman National Writers Workshop and in other creative writing classrooms. We cannot fault them for following what works for them. But ako, as a writing student, I really have seen how, to a certain extent, it is detrimental to the growth of the writing voice of the student. And that's why I tried to find some other model, no, of doing the writers workshop, in order to help, I guess, foster the creativity in the student, rather than focusing on, okay, here is what works, here is what doesn't work, now you fix it. Okay, but again, that's the way other teachers were taught, and that's how they teach. Okay, and so how did you react to that?
I mean, it still worked. Like I still figured out like a lot of things that we needed to work on. It worked as intended, but I didn't find the process a bit too clinical. And pero ano naman, we had an option at the end of the semester when we were redoing our drafts to defend the things we didn't change. So I really
Wow.
found that one. I found that particular part of the process really good for me.
Defend, like orally defend?
No, like a cover letter or like a letter before, like we had to outline like which comments we received that we didn't follow through with for this and that.
Okay, so that's good. There's an option to defend, but you shouldn't have to. That's my thing. But how about the grades? Were you happy with the grades, the grading system? How was the grading system done?
The final na
So walang grade yung mga drafts. Oo. Tapos ang score nyo ay perfect score as long as may comment, ganon. Ay, di nyo. Naka-record pala yung mukha ko. Kaibigan ko siya. So, huwag na lang natin i-mention yung names na. Well, hindi naman actually kayo naririnig dito sa recording, so okay lang. So, the final paper is graded. So, what is the basis for the final short story, for example? Really? So,
Basta makita na lang. So, siguro makita na lang yung changes na i-apply namin sa but I didn't really have a low score, but I had like eight. But think of kulang kasi yung revision ko, so that's why I was.
but kulang in what way? In your obedience to the comments?
For me, doing the workshop, because once you get the comments from, oh, this is what didn't work, and this is what you should do. As a writer, I feel like once you do your revision, that's the only thing you're gonna focus on, rather than actually improving the story the way you want.
Yeah. So is that useful for you as a writer?
It's easy in a way where.
Yeah.
when
Thank you. Thank you for saying that it's easier for you as a student to just follow the comments of the teacher and obey, isn't it?
basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess it's
Mhm.
I didn't change
And that's why you got a low grade.
Well,
Well, it wasn't a low grade, was it? Okay.
I didn't really follow
Why?
my story.
Okay. Okay. So part of you felt what? That you didn't want to follow the quad?
Some comments like if I follow that's not the ending I want. Like, if I follow certain comments, it's not the flow that I originally envisioned.
Mhm.
About those some comments I took because yeah, I can see a little bit of the flow, like I couldn't see it. And then like, why is this happening here when there's nothing? Oh, okay, I took that. And then there are others that I didn't wanna go through with like
So so you risked getting a lower grade by asserting your vision for your story.
it's like, it's mine anyway. Okay, the best way is okay, it's my story.
Yeah, it is. But that's Lori. Diba? I mean, you know that Lori would do such a thing. But what did you do? What did the others do? Because you want a good grade, right? Many of you want to get a good grade, make sure that you obey your teacher so that you get a good grade, and then you become university scholar, and then there's PubMat. For you, that you are university scholar and everybody loves you because you are the best student in the program. Isn't that right? And for me, as a writing teacher, I mean, it's good that we have students that are grade conscious. Diba? Because kayo yung pumapasok sa Zoom. Diba? Kahit hindi required na pumasok. Kayo yung nagre-recite. Na parang yung teacher parang sira ulo, kinakausap yung mga squares doon sa Zoom, di ba? Pero yung mga students sa grade conscious talagang nagre-recite, nag-on ng video, no? Para makita ng teacher, ako yung magaling sa klase, ako yung nagre-recite lagi para hindi ka mukhang siraulo, no? So we love those kinds of students and we don't discourage that, of course. But we also have students like Lori who would prefer to be true to her vision, creative vision for her creative work and resist the comments. And that there should be space for that, which is why I'm an advocate of the OIE model. For the OIE model, there is space for that. There is the third space in which the student writer is allowed really to make sense of his or her own work according to his or her own vision. And the process of the workshop is not meant to teach you how to fix what's wrong with your text, but really to make you see. Okay, that's what we want you to see, no? Through the process of the writing workshop. Okay, how about the others? The new ones, Yoshi. Not in my CW100 class. So you said that you hate formalism to the bone because
I
why?
realized that it's weird. I think it's just hardwired in my brain. I naturally do it because that's how I thought but like there's this essence of like, you know, like maybe rebellious spirit or something. Like I love postmodern lyrics.
Ah, yeah.
So, like I really like love postmodern. Sometimes it's just very quirky and smart.
There's no room for the postmodern text in a writing workshop.
So for example, like but in formalism, like the text speak on itself. There shouldn't necessarily be an authorial voice. Like, you know, the meaning is embedded. Like I like multimedia arts, so I usually pair photography with poetry. I find them one and the same. Like so I use imagery with
Sure.
language. That's not necessarily a typical, like, you know, poem would look like. So yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? In the
I
poetry class. Okay, poetry class. How about that? What was the
For the first time,
method?
we got confessional and experimental poetry. So I finally was able to kind of pair everything.
Ah,
I used, like, for example, I just used the Susan Sontag's paper on the Plato's Cave. Plato talks about art is just an imitation of the ideal.
okay.
So I use that as Susan Sontag kind of relates to how photographs are basically an illusion of real life that's easily manipulated. So like confessional poetry, even though it's a confession, like it's also like just a fragment of you. So it's like it's still not your entire being, it's just a fragment of a photograph. I just paired all those ideas together and turned into like something else.
Yeah, okay. So experimental poetry, di ba, ang method, the traditional writing workshop says, this is what works, this is what doesn't work, this is how you fix it. But if it's experimental, what is the basis for the what doesn't work?
Sir,
So walang workshop sa experimental. Interesting. So anong ginawa? Ha? Zine. Okay, so gumawa kayo tapos publish na yun. How interesting. So wala talaga siyang workshop. Pero yung sa isang klase ng poetry, yung poetry 1, may workshop. Okay, so paano mo na-workshop yung poetry? Ha? Saan? Sorry.
very good.
Happy ka? Ano basis ng happiness mo? Nalipay ka sa ginawa mo. So how did you process it in your head? Essentially. So paano ka nag-decide sa revision mo? Is that useful for you when somebody says, I like this line? Validation lang, validation. But so it doesn't help your creative process. Pero you feel like, nice. Okay. Haba na hair, di ba? Oo. Yeah, okay. So, obviously sa OIE model, iniiwasan natin yung ganong mga tanong na, happy ka ba sa ginawa mo? At saka yung mga comment na, I like this line, I hate this line. No? Iiwasan natin siya in the sense na, uunahin natin yung O, di ba? Yun yung difference. Meron din namang part doon sa OIE model, doon sa evaluation part, na sasabihin mo, I like it. But first, you have to say what this writer did. Okay, this is what you did. In this line, you said, my love is like a red, red rose. And then I interpret. To me, it means that love is like, this is your experience of love, no? That it's like, it's beautiful, it's fragrant, it's soft, yeah, but it has thorns, yeah, di ba? Of course, po, ni Robert Burns yun, no, na workshop natin. Pangit. Sa traditional class, cliche, race, di ba? Pero kung OIE, pagbibigyan mo siya na ito yung sinulat mo, observe. Ito yung sinulat mo, tapos ito yung naiintindihan ko doon sa sinulat mo, tapos saka ka palang mag-evaluate kung I like it. Why? Because. Then you always say why. Always say why. Especially if it's I don't like it. Kasi yung I like it, validation, happy na tayo in general. Diba? Pero yung I don't like it, talagang nakakanginig talaga ng ano yun, ng kalamnan, di ba? First, sabihin sa akin kung bakit hindi mo nagustuhan, di ba? And if you use the OIE model, then the writer and the person who is commenting is protected. No, it's protected from those ambiguous and arbitrary evaluations of a creative work. Na alam naman natin na, syempre at this point, alam nyo na yung mga sinusulat nyo, hindi lang yan assignment. Di ba? Mga baby nyo yan eh. Di ba? So, anak nyo yung mga sinulat nyo ng mga tula, na mga kwento. Tapos, pagbalik sa inyo, pulang-pula. Parang latay, no? Latay sa laman, no? Yung isang text ng isang writer, si Melinda Babaran, no? Yun yung kanyang, ang title ng essay niya, Latay sa laman. Ganun yung feeling. Doon sa, dati kasi printed, no? So, nakasulat, tapos red ballpen pa. Talagang duguan siya. And then, one of the things that actually for me revolutionized my own writing classroom is Google Docs, no? It's amazing. I mean, why didn't we ever do that before? No, yung well, we didn't have the technology before, no, na kailangan pa i-print out, no, at pero naisip ko dati, kahit naman hindi live yung document, as in Google Docs, pwede naman ginawa natin yun dati sa Word document, tapos insert comments, di ba? Na kahit hindi live, at least nandun lahat. And nangyari dati, even in my own writing classrooms, like I told you before, is yung iba ayaw na nilang isulat, di ba? Nagtatamad-tamad. So ilalagay lang nice. I like it. Yun nga, no? Happy ako. Yan. Tapos during the workshop session, saka ine-explain. And then there's no recording because it's it's a classroom. And then amazing, the revolutionary effect of recording the goddamn workshop. And then you can go back to it, tapos pag board ka na, forward mo, wow, di ba? So it is revolutionary for the writer to go back to what was said about the work, and then imayin mo siya. And then nahanapin mo kung ginamit yung OIE model properly, makikita mo yung ideal space na gusto nating marating, no? Na in which the text, the draft, opens up instead of closes down. Okay, that's what we want to do with the text. All right. So si Kiko from UP Diliman, ganun din ba yung writer's workshop?
My experience with workshops.
Same.
What works with drafts, they undergo the workshop. It's more or less than comments. This doesn't work. Usually, most comments are based on draft. So, yes. For example, for prose, then sa poetry, line cuts, mga ganun. And I've had experience with workshops outside. Sa org lang.
Yeah.
They more or less are trying to steer away from that workshop na dynamics kasi di ba usually traditional workshop, the author is dead. Like, they can, parang throughout the course of the workshop, workshoping, ay yung author niya.
Tahimik.
Tahimik lang.
Oh.
Bawal pumili.
Oh.
Is yung sa ibang workshops they try to include the author in the discussion. Kasi they found that useful din kasi usually kapag hindi makapag-react yung author, sobrang struggle ng mga kasama nyo.
Yeah. Oo. Oo.
Like,
Yeah.
usually, yung discussion and sobrang I don't want to say nonsense. Parang layo ng parating pa. Just ask the author. But it's, and it doesn't necessarily mean for me. Parang na-dating yung gusto mo. Kasi, hindi naman ay for sa isang part, naiintindihan ko bakit kailangan pag-standard yung kasi you write it for the founder. The other hand, important din yung role ng author kasi pero something paglabas mo say but this what the piece has to be one else. I think that's useful. Although never experienced it. Method na thinking things opening up possibilities of the text. Yung discussion.
Even within the UP Writers Club, which is all students and walang faculty talaga.
Walang faculty.
During the workshops, kayo lang.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's something maybe Litsok might consider also, no? Na kayo ang mag-organize ng sarili niyong mga writers workshop. Also? Ngayon lang or dati pa? Really? Okay. So, ano yung materials na dinidiscuss nyo? The drafts din from the classes?
Students, members in some class. And wala hindi siya masyadong breaks up for siyempre yung mga students. Minsan napapakita ng political standards nila. Pero more or less, ano din sila? More considerate sila sa board. Experimental ba?
Oo. Yeah, maganda dun kasi estudyante, tapos walang grade at stake. Yeah, and so you're in a way you are really applying the democratic a process of discussing the work.
So for the longest time din ba? Sakit niya talaga yung traditional.
Pero traditional yung approach. Yeah.
Hindi ko siya very formalistic approach sa mga things.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so in general, yung traditional na creative writing classroom is pag ano yung sinabi ng teacher na how to fix it, you follow it so that you get the good grade. And for me, that's detrimental to the creative process of the student. And it works, no? If you want your class to be efficient, no? And to a certain extent, ganun yung aking grading standards. So alam nyo naman, no, from the CW100 class na meron talagang portion ng grade na how you revised it after the workshop, no? But that's only one aspect of the rubric, no? So pinapakita ko naman sa inyo yung rubric, tapos there are three factors, no, doon sa rubric. So in general, that would be revision, and then your creativity, and the very basic language and mechanics, no? So tag 10 points. And then if you don't follow the comments, you're free, but you will get a lower grade for the revision. Okay, pero that's only 1/3 of your grade. But I also said to you that if I had a choice, I wouldn't grade creative work at all. Diba? So, yun yung first lesson natin sa CW100, no? How to, the uncreativity of the creative writing classroom. So, and that's really, for me, the worst aspect of the creative writing class is really the grading part. Because clearly, many students will just want to follow everything to get a good grade. And then other students naman who don't follow will get a bad grade, unnecessarily punished because of the system that says we have to grade you. Diba? Kaya lang yun nga. Yun yung sa akin na concession ko doon sa grading system. Kasi hindi naman pwedeng puro uno kayo. Alam niyo yung uno na lang kayo lahat. Pagdating pag-submit ko ng grades, gina-question. Merong mga nagtataka, bakit uno lahat ng mga estudyante nyo, no? And then pagdating doon sa University Council, pag anuhan na ng discussion na ng graduating students, yung mga, especially yung mga taga-CSM, tinatanong nila, bakit maraming honor graduates sa CHSS? Sobrang daming honor graduates sa CHSS, wala nang ibig sabihin yung mga Latin honors. May ganyan, no? Akala nyo approval lang of graduating students, mayroong mga dramang ganyan nangyayari, no? Sa University Council, kailangan pa i-defend kung bakit may Latin honors yung ating mga estudyante. Oo, kasi deserve nyo po yan. Oo, hindi nangangahulugan na pag maraming honors, ang isang kolehiyo ay bobo ang mga faculty. No? But yeah, no, there's that struggle within the bigger educational system. Now, of course, kung ako, I want to democratize my classroom, especially the creative writing. Sa CL, syempre, kung CL yung klase, ano yan objective naman yung basis ng grade, mostly. Pero yung creative writing talaga, it's hard to, like me as a teacher, it's hard to say, to grade you na your creativity is 10, your creativity is 5 or 2. Diba? Parang it's not fair. Okay, but we have to in a way, of course we have to follow the rules, of the system, as as far as we can, as much as we can. All right, so tingnan natin yung i-share ko na lang din dito. I just want to draw attention to some aspects of the Magaling na ako, pero yung aircon nakatapat. Ayan. So, as we mentioned, what we want to do is to create a third space. Okay, to make the writing workshop a third space. Do you remember our discussion of that third space? Ang tagal na, parang or baka hindi kayo nakikinig. The notion of third space comes from post-colonial literary theory. O, ayan. So, contemporary literary theory na ba kayo? CL. Contemporary literary theory, contemporary, yung kung saan kayo nag-aral ng post-structuralism. 122, CL 122. Okay, tapos na? Anong natutuhan sa post-colonial about third space? Suddenly lahat sila Google it. De, ano yung natutunan sa CL 122? Okay, Kuya Kiko. Iba yung post-colonial literary theory. Okay.
From third spaces, parang giving spaces to parang unrepresented voices. Kasi post-colonial ano yung products ng colonialism texts. So, paano nabibigyan ng legitimate voices yung nandun sa mga
Okay.
So, yung third spaces, yun yung having this space para for this voice na walang paint ng
Colonizer.
colonial na influence.
Okay, like totally wala?
Hindi totally, parang not to say din na parang ito yung indigenous na voices. Walang bakit. Pero ano yung, how are they negotiating
Yeah,
colonial
right.
identity?
Correct. Yeah.
Na, at the same time, gusto rin nila bumalik from that colonial influence.
Mhm.
Parang recognition ng colonial past.
Right.
Doing away with that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, sure. Hold on. Sandali ah. Motherly duties. Do you agree, others? If may natutunan niyo si N1 to 2. If may natutunan niyo sa CL1 to 2. May post-colonial ba kayo sa CL1 to 2? Sa 150, ano yung 150? Popular culture? Ano nga yun? Sa Philippine Literature and English, yeah. So, ano yung third space? Sa Philippine Literature and English? Was that ever mentioned? It's a very useful concept. So, ano lang ang ginagawa ng Philippine writers in English? Yeah, si Humibaba, oo. Hybridity. Okay, sige, ano yung hybridity? Yeah. Yeah, correct. Okay, so pareho yung sinasabi nyo nung yung interpretation ng sa post-colonial literature, merong tatlong spaces, no, doon sa isang post-colonial na community like the Philippines, no, or like Philippine literature in English. So there are three spaces. So the first space is the space of the colonizer. No, ito yung ginagawa ng colonizer, tapos ito yung ito si the native writer, yun yung second space, no, like purely indigenous. So ito si purely indigenous, ito si colonizer. Tapos pagpapasok ni colonizer, merong mga natives na ang gusto nilang gawin ay gayahin si colonizer, the mimic man. Yun yung tawag ni Humibaba doon, the mimic man. And so meron tayong ganyan ng mga writers, so in Philippine literature and English. Sinunod lang nila kung ano yung the American short story, for example, and they followed it and they did it well, and therefore they won Palangka Awards, no? In the first space of the colonizer. Samantala, yung indigenous writers na hindi sila nagpasakop, no? Hindi talaga magpasakop doon sa pinapasok ng mga ideya ng mga colonizer masters, sila yung second space, no? And hindi sila nananalo ng Palangka Awards, no? Sila yung mga nagpa-publish independently at hindi na pag-uusapan sa mga main spaces, no, ng so-called Philippine literary system. Okay, kung yan ay naka-apply din sa Philippine literature in English. Okay, or the writers who will refuse to write in the language of the colonizer, diba? So yan yung second space. Ngayon, ang interesado tayo, yung third space. Ano yung third space na yun? Dito sa third space, which is really the post-colonial space, is the writer or the native, okay, realizes na you cannot defeat the colonizer anymore. No? Tapos na yung revolusyon doon sa proseso ng colonial process. Hindi natin maaalis na English. Marami sa atin na nagsusulat na sa English, and therefore, ano yung gagawin natin dito? Hindi natin siya ma-defeat. It already exists. For example, Philippine literature in English. Tapos ang sabi dyan ni Hemino Abad, it's not Philippine literature in English, it's Philippine literature. It's not in, but okay, sumbong ko kayo kay Ma'am Farah. Sumbong ko kayo kay national artist Hemino Abad. Yan yung mga lahat ng mga volumes ng kanyang Philippine poetry na volumes, yung A Native Clearing, Man of Earth, yung ano nga yung contemporary, A Habit of Shores, yeah. yung introduction nun, doon niya yung lagi sinasabi na Philippine writers do not write in English, we write from. We write from English. Yun yung sabi ni Abad, no? At tapos, so sa isip ko, ang interpretation ko doon, dahil doon sa notion ng third space sa post-colonial, ay yun yung the creation of the third space in which the Filipino writer kind of learns to use the language of the colonizer in his or her own ways to assert the native identity. Okay, so yun yung third space. At ang tawag doon ni Jimeno Abad is Philippine literature from English. And then pinapatunayan niya, nagbibigay siya ng examples na yung mga, the way we use English, napaka-basic, the way we use English in the Philippine setting, di ba? Na sometimes ungrammatical talaga siya, pero sa atin nakakaintindihan tayo, no? And that's an assertion. Mas klaro yan sa Singapore English, no? Yung Singlish. Super klaro sa kanila. Pero sa atin, like minor things like when you say for a while, diba? Yung like somebody calls you, can I speak with Lori? For a while. Okay, pag American English, pag native speaker of English, magtataka kasi ibig sabihin ng for a while ay a period of time. Diba? So, pero sa atin, sa mga Filipino speakers, pag sinabing for a while, kadali lang, kadjut lang. Diba? Or, you know, just a moment. Diba? Pero it's really ungrammatical, but everybody in the Philippines understands for a while that way. So, i-assert natin, correct yan sa atin. Diba? Third space. That is how we use English idiomatically, no? In our own culture. And so we allow it, diba? Pero yun nga, no? So sa creative writing classroom, paano nag-a-apply yung third space? Sinong colonizer sa creative writing classroom? Ako, no? The writing teacher na colonized ang brain dahil nag-aral kay Paul Engel sa Iowa Writers Workshop noong 1944, di ba? So, American talaga, colonizer talaga siya. No? The Philippine Creative Writing Classroom and the Philippine Writers Workshop is really a colonial, it's a product of our colonial experience. Okay? Because it is new criticism, it's formalism direct from Paul Engel. And the other masters of new criticism from Iowa. Tapos inuulit natin ng inuulit. More than 50 years na yung Silliman Writers Workshop. And not just that. Okay? Kasi yung ibang mga writing schools, the same. The same. So so colonizer, and then the way it's taught, and then yung writers na sabing na indigenous, o yung student writer na revolting against the power of the teacher, Lori Valdez. Yeah. Second space. It's my vision. Follow ka sa buhay mo, di ba? Hindi kita susundin because it's not true to my vision. Okay, tapos bahala siya, no? Haharapin niya yung consequences ng kanyang creative choice. Pero ayaw natin gawin yan sa creative writing program kasi we are inside an academic program, and you're meant to to learn through the process, no, of the creative writing classroom. So sana yung creative writing teachers natin kakampi natin doon sa creation of what is called the third space, no, in the Mary Ann Cain article, no. It is what it does is it's really focusing on the process rather than the product. And the third space allows the writer and the teacher, the colonizer and the native, to interact in a way that feels safe. No? Yun yung hybrid space na tinatawag ni Homi Baba. It's a hybrid space because you're sharing power. No? So yung colonizer, the teacher, feels na pwede naman i-share yung power. Hindi ko kailangan na assert yung authority ko over the student text, okay, and force people to write the way I write. Usually ganun, di ba? We're just churning out writers who write the same way we do. It's not bad if we're Palangka award-winning writers. But fuck Palangka awards. Diba? Who is to say that if you don't have a literary award, you don't write well? And that if you do have a literary award, you must be an amazing writer. I roll. I have a palang. I have two. But I roll. Diba? Who is to say? Diba? Tapos, so, in other words, you share power in the creative writing classroom between teacher and student and classmates. And in this space, we hope that we are creating a space safe enough for you to feel that you can explore your creativity without being punished for it. Your weirdness without being punished for it. Without having to defend yourself. Diba? Ayaw ko talaga, yung creative writing workshop natin sa thesis, they still call it defense? No. I always tell my advisees, this is not a defense. You are the authority on your text, on your manuscript, because, so, and we're just here to discuss, diba? What, might, be, what might be done for you to hear your voice more clearly. Let's say, masyado maingay, di ba? So we want to create that third space. We hope that we help you create a space in the writing workshop that will allow you to hear your own voice over the noise of what everybody else is saying. Di ba? Lalo na kung ang dami. Di ba? Laki-laki ng classroom. Tapos ang dami-dami sinasabi. Tapos nagko-contradict. Ganun yung mga panel minsan. I remember meron before, ako mismo, no? Talagang parang sinasadya na kokontrahin yung sasabihin ko. No? But that's not because of the student text. That was because of our personal history, no? Together. Chismis. Basahin niyo yung basahin niyo yung aking memoir. Yeah, no? So parang kawawang estudyante kasi ginagawang battleground for other things. Yung writing workshop. So for me, it should not be a defense. You are the authority and you are the last say on the matter. Kaya lang, ang bad news is, we were told by the UP system, bilis ng oras, in the real life classroom. Pagka-Zoom, ang tagal na oras, no? So we were told by the UP system that we have to give numeric grades for CW140-141. Dati kasi, the idea is really that you should be free in CW200A, which is your creative work manuscript, to do what you like. Do what you like with your creative work text because it's your work. It's your creative work manuscript. So, ang grade namin dati dyan, U at S. Unsatisfactory or satisfactory. And nobody gets unsatisfactory unless di kayo nag-submit sa advisor nyo and only the advisor. So tayong dalawa lang mag-uusap. Tungkol sa ano bang gagawin ko dito, ma'am? Okay, so ito. Okay na. S na agad. Para low ang academic stakes doon sa creative work. Pero yung 200B, yun yung meron ng grade. Yung panelist, meron na silang ibibigay na grade. Pero ngayon, maganda, may rubric na tayo. So you're not like, nobody's guessing na happy yung panelist mo doon sa ginawa mo or hindi. May rubric talaga. So alam nyo kung paano kayo i-grade. May percentage, yung panelist at yung advisor. So it's clear, the grading system is clear. Problema namin ngayon, required na kami magbigay ng numeric grade sa 200A. And for me, that's really detrimental to the creative process of the students. But again, so as we said, we have to work with the system. And that's why, as a program, we're going to have a meeting about how we can work around that idea, no, of grading the creative work manuscript at the level of 200A. I-accept natin na kailangan talaga i-grade sa 200B, kaya lang yung 200A. But anyway, no, nabigla kami doon sa bagong policy na yon that actually was applied to everybody, lahat ng mga 200A, applied last semester. And for me, it was really arbitrary. It's so arbitrary. So sa akin, as a compromise, I gave my students 1.0. Because hindi alam ng estudyante na i-grade siya numerically. nung gumawa siya ng 200A manuscript. So, for me, that's how I feel. But I hope the students felt naman that the grades they were given, suddenly given, were fair and just. But we are working as a program. We will do better. Okay, so there you go. Yeah, so dun sa third space na yun, or hybrid space, we want to open up the text. You already know it from reading the Cain article, and you know it from the way we did it in CW100, perhaps imperfectly. But I promise you that I've had more practice with the OIE model, and I hope that I'm already doing it better. The steps, of course, is in order to open up the text, the steps, you already have it, no? Is observe. So the integrity of the text must be respected. In other words, pagpasa nyo ng draft, ang assumption ng lahat ng tao, kunyari, na-publish ito sa Philippines Graphic, tong text na to, no? Or sa Dagmay, no? Na-publish sa Dagmay itong essay ni Kyle, at we are now observing it during the OIE workshop. Now we are observing. Ito yung na-observe natin. Surface reading of the text. Okay? This is what, ito yung title niya. Tapos ito yung characters. Ito yung ganyan. No? So just really observe it. And then the next step is interpret. Okay, what might it mean? According to how I read it is, okay, the title is so and so because it refers to the so and so of the so and so. Okay, so interpret it as if it were already a published text. It's not seen as a draft that has to be fixed. There's something broken about it. It has to be fixed. Alam naman nyo yun, di ba? Na pag nagsulat kayo ng draft, kung hindi naman last minute sinulat. Oo, sige, kung last minute nyo sinulat, kagabi lang, 5 minutes before class, before the workshop, syempre expect na broken yun. Diba? Kasi hindi nyo sineryoso yung proseso eh. Pero sana dito sa atin, no, dahil mas maaga nating isa-submit yung draft, i-expect natin yung Google Docs, isusulat ng groupmates lahat ng OIE na comments. So dapat pinaglalaanan ng panahon yung draft. Kaya nire-respeto natin yung draft. Kasi yung writer, nirespeto niya yung sarili niya, sumulat siya ng draft at sa palagay niya, maayos yung draft na pwedeng iharap doon sa klase at pag-usapan ito bilang published text. No? And accorded the respect that the published text has before you evaluate. And evaluation means is saying what you think is valuable about it. Ito yung pwede nang sabihin na I like it. Okay? Kasi nakita nyo na kung ano yung on the surface, ito yung nakalagay sa text. Okay? Oh, dito sa teksto na to, walang mga pangalan ng mga characters. At sa palagay ko, ito yung ibig sabihin. Tapos saka pa lang sasabihin kung does it work? How does it work? Okay? That's the important question. When you get to the evaluation portion of your comment, you can say how it works. If it works, how does it work? If it doesn't, then why doesn't it work? Okay, it's the burden of defense, which isn't really defense. It's justification. The burden of justifying is on the person giving the comments, not on the person who wrote the text. And then of course, bibigyan natin ng time yung writer na magsalita, no? Alam naman natin kung sino yung ano, di ba? We're not going to pretend that the writer is anonymous. Duh! Alam naman natin, magkaklase naman tayo. So, the fact that we know who wrote it means na pwedeng i-discuss, pwedeng tanungin siya directly. Tulad nung sabi ni Kuya, Kiko, na you can ask the writer directly para, di ba? Kung hindi naman talaga cow, hindi naman talaga metaphor yung moon for the revolution, di ba? For example, ito siya na sasabihin na actually ano lang yan, first love ko yan. Yung ibig ko sabihin dyan sa text na yan. Parang hindi na kung saan-saan nagpunta yung yung discussion. Pwede namang ganun, no? On the other hand, we don't want the writer din naman to insist on your own vision at the beginning of the process. Di ba? Kailangan hanapin natin yung happy balance between, okay, here is what I think it means, but okay, tell me what you mean, what you think it means. And then yung writer eventually during the process of revision will say, okay, let me consider what this person said, let's consider what this person said, and then ultimately it's you. Really, ultimately it's you. And I want us to feel that you're safe, no, to assert your vision after listening to the process. Okay? Kaya meron pa rin yung process kasi mahalaga yung process. Okay? Much more for us writing teachers, really much more important than the product. Okay? And I hope that by the end of our course, you will have gained a greater appreciation for the process over the product and over the grade. Okay, any questions? Okay, so we'll end the